welcome. Tonight on the show, we're discussing the various forms of social welfare assistance that is afforded to all Fijians, and in particular, a much-needed information update exercise currently underway by the Department of Social Welfare. And we have with us to discuss this the Director of Social Welfare, Mr. Rupeni Fatiaki. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's first talk about the information update exercise that's currently underway. Give us an overview. What is this and why is it being done?
Yeah, thank you. This exercise, which we refer to as the recertification exercise, it is part of our normal, reviews that we do with our the cases that are assisted by through the social protection programs. And so what's happening is that we are asking, the beneficiaries, to provide us with the updated information, the data. Reason for this is that, when they come in and apply, for some time they have been there for some time, and so we need to update the information because first, some of them may have moved to other locations, and secondly, some may have passed on. And so this is part, like I said, part of our updating of information so that we sure that if there are any changes that we need to update our system and try and if they have moved on or passed on, we need to close those cases. And if they have moved to other locations, and then you will have to change and update their information. And so what is required of this exercise is that we have developed forms, and we are going to ask them to fill those forms and update the address if they have moved. And we are giving them now until July for them to come and fill those forms. And once we receive the forms, we will update the information in the case files. And so we're giving these months for them to do that. And so after that, come August and September and October, we'll give them that grace period. If they have not returned their forms, then we will hold. But once they return their forms, then we will reactivate their cases. But after that, after October, if forms don't come back to us, then we'll assume that they have passed on, so we will close those cases.
So how often do you go about this recertification?
For the recertification, this is the first time we're doing. But like I said, this is part of normal reviews, as we look at our system. In the past, what we normally do is that we do a review where we have to get project officers. Mm-hmm. And so, at the moment, we have about 87,000 plus on our books. Mm-hmm. And so it was a costly exercise because we had to get project officers to come in, and we had to visit every individual case, if you're looking at 100% review of the cases. And so we did that in 2013. And so now as we progressed, and every year, annually, officers do their reviews as part of their responsibilities and work. And so now we're looking at what are the best ways that we can continue to conduct these reviews at a less cost way. And so we looked and we asked around, and we had gotten this information from the Fiji Ex-Servicemen's Association.
Right.
And this is how they have done the recertification, on the beneficiaries of the programs. And so we looked at how they did it, and how we can adopt it and develop it into how we can use it for our clients. And so that's how we have we come out with the exercise that we're doing now.
So currently the information updating system that exists within the Department of Social Welfare, like you said, it's done on an annual basis at the moment. Do you think that through this exercise in particular, you'll have a better idea of what's really going on? And why is there a difference between this exercise and the normal annual review that you do?
The normal annual reviews that you do is, like I said, it's part of the as our officers visit the fields and the communities. They are always, reviewing cases as they come across. So it's not systematic, and it's not like a total review. So it's like on piecemeal basis as they come across, and as they do the works every year. But normally within 5 years we do a big exercise where we look at all the recipients, and we do, and then after that, we continue to do annual reviews. But it is required, and it's important that we have those, these exercises, these big exercises, within those period of time, because within that period of time, a lot of information have changed, a lot of people have passed on, so that's how we do it.
So, Mr. Fatiaki, with the social welfare programs that are in place for the beneficiaries and for recipients, there are different types of schemes. For those that are not aware, could you please elaborate on that?
Okay, allow me if I could say a brief background on how these systems have come into being. For information, our system and our social protection system has gone a long way back. In fact, it's almost 100 years now. It started in the 1920s, and it was during those days, when we had indentured laborers, and so after they have the contracts, and they're able to go back to India, and so government at the time, introduced the scheme, and it used to be referred to as the destitute allowance. And so at the time, it was those indentured laborers who could not go back, and those who stayed back but don't have the means, and so. As the years progressed, it has evolved, and so in 1950s, I believe, when we had other groups coming in, and it was in 1969 when the department was established, social welfare, and so it was then referred to as the Family Assistance Allowance. And in the 90s, we had the Care and Protection Allowance came in, and this is for the children living poor families. Single parents, and these were the two big programs that existed, then. But lately, recently, we had programs coming. But this is again after reviews that had been done for this. So in 2010, with the help of the World Bank, we were able to review the family assistance program. And so with the recommendations, they identified that there's a need for a pension for our elderly, and also the recommendation for the disability allowance.
We'd like to just put a pin in that, and we'll get back to the various forms of assistance and I guess the changes that we'll see across all of them once the exercise is underway. We'll come back after a short break. Stay with us. So, Mr. Fatiaki, we were discussing before the break the various forms of assistance that are available. Because when you say social welfare, it's a big umbrella, right?
Yes, and so as I mentioned, the different types of programs, schemes that are, currently being administered by the department. And so I said, the family assistance program, this was targeting households, poor households. And then we had the Care and Protection Allowance that was targeting children in poor households, single-parent households. And so after the review that was done by the help of the World Bank, the Poverty Benefit Scheme, which is one of the current programs that you have, replaced the Family Assistance Scheme, and it's a household targeted. And then again, the Care and Protection Allowance, it's a household targeted, targeting children in single-parent, poor single-parent and households, and guidance where we have a lot of cases where grandparents are looking after the grandchildren. So these two programs are household targeted. Then we have the introduction of the social pension scheme, and this is again at the recommendation of World Bank, and this is targeting the old persons. And so it started with 70 years and above, and so in the last couple of years the age has been brought down to 65. Then 2 years ago the government introduced the disability allowance. Again, in 2011, the introduction of the bus fare program, and again, we also have the expanded the food voucher program for pregnant mothers in rural areas. So at the moment, these are the current programs that the department administers.
So the exercise that's being applied, it's across the board? It's for any social welfare recipient?
The exercise that we are doing right now is targeting the 4 big ones. The poverty benefit scheme. At the moment, we have 26,000 plus on our under that program. We have the social pension scheme. We have about 45,000 on the social pension scheme, and with the care and protection allowance, we have about 8,000 plus on those under that assistance, and with the disability allowance, there's about 7,000 plus. So it's a total about 87,000 cases, under those forces. And this is the programs that we are targeting with the recertification program.
So looking at the numbers that we have so far, when you look at it population-wise, it's close to about 10% of the population that comes under all of these schemes that you've mentioned. It's quite difficult to keep track, and there's also loopholes, and there's also ways and areas in which people manipulate the system. Can you talk to us about some of the major issues that have come across the board for all these programs?
Yes, I think one of the things that we have come across is that when some people pass on, and so if take for example for the social pension scheme, the target is old people, and so sometimes at the moment payments are done through the bank, so they have bank accounts. Apart from those that are living in the maritime islands, we give them vouchers. So take for example, if some of our people who come across cases, they are not confident in using the bank cards in the ATM machines. And so they normally give it to their family. Either they give to a daughter, to a son, or nephew, or niece, or granddaughter. And so they operate on behalf of these old persons. And so in cases where if the person passes away, and in the applications we have made it clear if cases with somebody, please inform us the person has passed away. But in cases where if they don't inform us, and so they have access to the PIN number, the card, so they continue to use that, and so until we find out, then we'll be able to address that.
So the question then arises, of course, this all comes down to ethics. If one is not, doesn't have a good moral compass, so one will abuse the system. But is there any measures in place where your department may be looking at to try and curb this practice?
So yeah, like what I said, what I said earlier, our annual reviews are part of that, that measure to ensure, we are trying to update all the cases. Again, we have been working with the BDM in trying to have access to the database on deaths, so that we'll be able to update if cases have people have passed on. But again, the challenge is if somebody passes dies in the village or in the community, in the rural areas, and it's not registered, then we will not be able to pick it up on the system.
Is there a current system that you have in place to track recipients?
It's normally through our reviews, and then it's the reviews that we do. That's the only system.
What about feedback from perhaps banks?
Yes, we also work with the banks. We're looking at these accounts that not have been dominant accounts. We would say that if an account has been dominant for last 3 months or 6 months, so they will provide us with that information. And so we cross-check with the books, and then we put a hold on that, those kind of cases. Yeah.
Well, with the digitization of government services, there's also a move towards a national identity card. Currently, with anyone who happens to be part of the social welfare recipients scheme, they would need to carry quite a number of different cards. You'd need your bank card, you need your ID card, you need your pensioner's card, and then there's a bus card as well. So all of those cards, it becomes quite troublesome and cumbersome for someone of an older generation to have to carry all of that around. Is there any plans to streamline that?
Yes, I think currently, there's consultation with, I think, Digital Fiji, the company that is working in trying to get the national card. So yeah, they have been consulting with us, because yes, that issue did arise. We have, issues where, people lost their cards, and so they come back to us, and some of them can lose their cards 2 or 3 times, and so they keep come back to us for us to make those cards. But yes, we have been, advised and informed, and a couple of years ago that once the national card comes, they should be able to accommodate all this, so they don't have to carry individual cards for different purposes. Yeah.
We'll have more for you when we come back from our next break. Stay with us. So this segment, we'd like to discuss one particular branch of social welfare that that you mentioned earlier, which is the social pension scheme for elderly persons, right?
Yeah.
Earlier this year, last year, there's been a lot of discussion on that, especially when the pensioners came out and said, they weren't happy with the cash they were receiving, their preferred vouchers. But even before that, let's just take a detour from this exercise and consider the number of pensioners that you have at the moment. With FNPF also releasing statistics on the amount of people that are due to retire without enough savings to sustain themselves, do you anticipate more and more pensioners?
Yes, I think, as I mentioned, at the moment we have 45,252 cases on social pension scheme. And so there is the possibility, that people, would end up with us, and we have cases, where people have taken the lump sum from FNPF, and they have, when we ask and inquire with them, and they say, no, yes, I took the lump sum. I was working at one time, and I took the lump sum, and I paid off my property or my house, and I've sent my children to school, and so I don't have any money. So in such situations, scenarios, we would ask them, we would ask FNPF to provide us, with a letter of confirmation, and they would be able to accept them in the system. But I think, yes, the fact that, within that, as you mentioned, 55 to 65, and it's only less, FNPF, that could be an issue, come 10 years after that. And I think that's what we're doing now. What we're doing now is that we're relooking the criteria and seeing, as to how you can, we have cases, issues, people have come up to us and say, this is my situation. And so we're relooking our criteria and see how we could
So the current criteria is, of course, meeting the age qualification, which is 65 years, right? And you also have to have no other source of income. So let's say, for example, if someone had enough savings in the FNPF and they were receiving money, they would not qualify for the social.
So it's one of the criteria, and part of the criteria is if you don't not receiving any superannuation. It's either FNPF or the ex-serviceman, the Fiji ex-serviceman fund.
So just to clarify, that is for someone that has some savings in their account. What if you have people who have FNPF accounts but no savings whatsoever, yet they don't reach some of the criteria of being 65? What if they're still below 65 and they have no savings? Then what happens in that instance?
Well, at the moment, our criteria is, the age is 65. So, that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, because you can see the problem there when the retirement age is 65 when you receive FNPF, and then the social pension scheme. So it's a 10-year gap, which is a long time. And if someone, let's say, for example, retires with just $10,000, it's very likely that they'll spend that money within 1 year. So, what other protections afforded to elderly persons within that, so that I guess that's a.
So while we're still on the subject, there's been not misinformation, but shall we say misconceptions about the changes that have been made as to the payouts in this particular field. Before it was just money directly deposited into accounts. I have been told that there have been calls from the Pensioners Association to have that given out as food vouchers, and again, this year you mentioned that they've asked for money again. Is that for all pensioners that are now going to be given money, or is it all pensioners are going to be given food vouchers? What's the distinction?
Yeah, I think there's a misunderstanding on the different types of assistance, as I mentioned those four. The food voucher program is only given to the poverty benefit scheme, the household targeted assistance, and the care and protection allowance. So they are given an allowance, a monthly allowance, plus a $50 food voucher. So these are for the only two programs. Now the social pension scheme, when we started way back in 2012 for the elderly, we started with food voucher. So they were not receiving cash. It was $30 food voucher. And so as we progressed, we had people come in and say, we want the cash. And so government, we changed it from food voucher to cash. So at the moment, the social pension scheme, the recipients are receiving $100 per month. There is no food voucher, and it's directed to the bank accounts of the vouchers. So it's exclusive of the $50.
What advantage did you see in moving from food vouchers to cash?
Yeah, because the food voucher, there are only limited items that you can purchase, and in the amount. But the cash, the cash is they can buy anything. And I think, allow me to clarify again on this is, the pension was introduced after again when we have when we were when the family assistance was up then, and so the family assistance you have the family, okay, I say household targeted, and then you have say for example if the son is receiving, he's the breadwinner, so the assistance is written under him as the main breadwinner, and so within that family you have the son and the wife and children. And then you have the old person also, the father or the mother in the same household. And so we have complaints, from old people saying, yes, we are receiving, but we never, we never benefited from it. We understand because the son, and again, this is starting poor households. And so if the son has his own children to look after, so the focus will be on the children, and so the old person is kind of neglected. And so one of the reasons why it's introduced so that at least even the old person is staying in that household, at least he could have, some, money that they could buy whatever their needs are, if they want to go.
So, one thing that came to mind while you were explaining that particular situation, is a person or any beneficiary only eligible for one scheme at a time, or can they be eligible for multiple schemes?
The poverty benefit scheme, say for example, if an old person is looking after the grandchildren, right, and it's very common. So this old person is looking after the grandchildren. We can assist them with the care and protection allowance for the grandchildren. That person can also receive the disability allowance. I mean, not the disability, but the social pension scheme.
Right.
The same with the disability allowance. If they're within that house, for example, say a mother and children, and so one of the child is disabled. So the mother, the family can receive the care and protection allowance for the children, and they can also, the child that is disabled can also receive the disability allowance.
We'll carry on the discussion when we come back from our next break. Stay with us. Before the break, we were discussing the social pension scheme and the way some pensioners have expressed their desire for food vouchers over cash. Would you have any idea as to how many people have expressed this concern?
At the moment, we don't have the actual numbers, but but the feedback that you're getting from the calls that are coming to us after this program went earlier, we are receiving calls from the beneficiaries that they would prefer to remain in the $100, the cash, the allowance paid to the bank account. Yeah.
But looking at the amount itself, of course, it is quite helpful that there is money going out to those that genuinely do need it. But with the rising cost of living, and of course with other expenses that do come forth, has there been calls for an increase in the allowance?
Well, yeah, I mean, always the case, people are always, asking for an increase. But I think another thing that must make clear that, this is an assistance, and, it's to help them in their time of need, and that, you would, in fact, you would have asked them, to look for other, means of, help, to complement, what government is giving them, and not totally just depend on the assistance.
So in essence, a stepping stone in helping them to be a little more independent in finding sources of income. What about looking at areas or maybe submissions that could be made, since budget consultations might be underway very soon, about maybe making some changes, maybe making provisions to providing not just the current $100 allowance, but also allowing for food vouchers to be complemented with the money?
I mean, this is something that that they can put up, during the budget consultations, and I think the idea that people we expect them, we would like them to look for other means, and so government the department has a program which is called the graduation program, where seed funding is provided for for those that we have assessed and are willing to engage in small businesses, and so that's a pathway that we would we take them out of the system. So we help them with seed funding, and we come up with projects like canteens or a cover business or shop or something, this kind of thing, and so we assist them. And so, like, we graduate them, understanding that we have a budget that we work within a year, and so we need to exit people and bring those that are really needy into the system, and so that would be the way that we should be doing this. And so for the care and protection allowance and the poverty benefit allowance, it's supposed to be a temporary assistance and not a permanent.
So now that we have, I guess, a better context of all of these welfare schemes, let's bring it back to the exercise that you're undertaking. So with some aspects, I'm a little concerned as to whether or not they'll be able to update all of the information in time, because they have time until October, and then, as I understand it, there's a 2-month grace period, and if within that 2-month grace period, after that you will cancel anyone's account who has not responded, right?
That's the we're giving them all this time, to. And so what we're doing is I'm thank you for giving us this opportunity to come. At the moment, we're doing in this phase of media awareness, and so we have started in the last week, and we have seen a tremendous response from the beneficiaries. As I was coming down to here to the studio, there was a lot of people in our Suva office, coming to fill their forms,
Right.
and they received the same response from our other.
Do you have, I guess, measures in place for, I guess, elderly persons or persons who may not be able to read or write, or some form of assistance given to them?
Yes, yes. We are, apart from them coming to the offices, our offices are going into the community, and so they're taking the forms to communities during the awareness programs. So yes, in the form we are also asking there's a third party that could help to verify that and so that's also included in the form that they are required to fill it.
What about the application process? What's the turnaround time for that?
The turnaround time for application, we're given in our SOPs, procedures. It's a 30 turnaround time. But now we can do a case if all documents are provided. It should be able to do it within a week. But then, yes, we have cases where it has been delayed, and now it has gone past the turnaround time. There's several reasons to it. Sometimes documents don't come on time because there's relevant documents that would require them to produce, and sometimes officers don't go and do the visits, and so it's get delayed. The times when documents get missing, so those are the kind of things that.
So when there's a delay in the turnaround time, what about the monies that is missed out on, the genuine cases that do require assistance? What happens to them? Is there any restitution for them?
At the moment, it's once the application is processed and approved, then we start from that.
You mentioned earlier the third party that may be involved in here. And when we talk about especially persons with disabilities or elderly persons, in receiving their social welfare schemes, there may be third parties involved, right?
Yes.
And what's the relationship that the Department of Social Welfare has with those third parties?
Yes, with third parties, we do allow third parties. And so, if a person comes and, and makes an application and, say, I will not, or some of them, the children, or, grandchildren come on the behalf. And so in those type of cases, we allow third parties to operate. And so in such a case, we will have, the ID card that you mentioned earlier. We'll have the ID card, we'll have the recipients, information in front. And at the back of the card, we will have the third parties information at the back. So this is, they will identify to us who is going to be the third party. So this is the person that the department will allow to operate their.
We'll carry on this discussion when we come back in our final segment. Stay with us. So it's our final segment, and we'd like to talk about, some other issues that affect the Department of Social Welfare, especially recipients. We were discussing third parties as we went into the break. Have you ever had situations where there was a third party involved, or there were certain family members involved that were taking advantage of these recipients?
Yes, we have, cases that have been reported to us where, as I mentioned earlier, we have some third parties, so some family members have access to the old person's card, and so they have taken it and withdrawn the money, and so money never gets to the old person, and so they get reported to us. We have those type of cases. And I think the other program that we did not really discuss is the bus fare program. So we have cases where cards have been returned to us by LTA because the purple card was supposed to be for old persons. Somebody else,
somebody who wasn't supposed to be using it.
Somebody else comes in with that purple card. So these are the type of the issues that are highlighted with us.
So I'm interested in knowing how you deal with such complaints. Because if it can be a sensitive situation if members of your own family are doing it. You have issues with the security of your own household. Will you be able to stay there if something happens?
So normally, when those cases report to us, we officers do a home visit, and so they'll go and just validate and discuss with the family and just tell them that no, this is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be. The assistance is supposed to be given to the old person.
So for cases that need to be reported, is it absolutely necessary for the recipient or the beneficiary themselves to report cases of abuse, or is it okay for any other member of the general public to just come in and say, look, I think this is wrong, this is happening, and I want you guys to have a look at it?
Yeah, we have members of the public, neighbors reporting to us, not only of of cases like what they have discovered, mentioned, but also of cases where they think that some of the people are not deserving. And so they would come and they would write to us. Some of them would write anonymously and say, I know
system's
this,
being
I know
abused.
this case, who's receiving, but they have this, they have that, they are not, they don't qualify for that. And so what happens is that we dispatch our officers to go and do an investigation and just to validate the information that has been put forward to us.
Look, just to digress a little bit from the recertification exercise and the schemes itself, looking at some of the issues that pensioners and also beneficiaries of these schemes have, it's a human aspect. There's cases of abuse, there's cases of people being subjected to just horrendous situations. How does the Social Welfare Department come in and step in to assist them? Of course, you've mentioned when there's abuse of the monies that is being given out to the recipients, your officers do come in. But what about other cases of abuse?
Well, and just for the for information, the social protection program is just one part of our work, our responsibility. Apart from that, we have other units, and we have other, child protection is one area that we work with. Now we have disability under, under the department, and we have aging, and so there is these different units in the department that looks after the different aspects of our work. And so yes, what we've seen now is we've seen an increase in neglect of our old persons. Apart from the allowance that they receive, we look after the state homes, the 3 state homes for the elderly. One in Gambasa and one in Sonambula and the one in Lautoka. And we see an influx of applications coming in. People wanting to put the old people in the homes, and we have come across cases where old people have been abused. And so in those kind of cases, and then again the children. And so, with the children we have a law, the legislations gives us the authority to remove children from such situation when we see that their safety is in jeopardy. And so we have, by law, we can do that. You can remove a child from an abusive environment, take them to court, and the court will give the director and his staff the legal guidance. So in such cases, we place them in institutions, or we find relatives, to look after, to take care of it. With the elderly, again, we try to see if the family, but then again, with that, when abuse happens, we'll have to report it to the police.
So with this review being conducted, what are the financial implications of this, especially for the Department of Social Welfare?
Yes, hopefully we'll be able to, if I've abused the clean our system, and we'll be able to discover some that they may have, like I said, passed on. That will be, savings to us, and then that allows that go to another poor family or person. It will also help us, in trying to update our system, and hopefully looking at how we can better our services, in the ways of like looking at the criteria. We did mention about that, so we can help. How can we look at the criteria and include those that may be not but almost falling to that poverty.
Before we wrap up, just a final question. For those who are eligible for some of these schemes, especially the family assistance, say for example, if there is there's a possibility of income coming in, someone graduates, maybe a child, or finishes off studies, and then they're able to get a job, and the assistance that they are eligible for and the money that is coming into the household, what happens to that particular beneficiary or to that particular household?
So normally, if we see, as I mentioned earlier, normally when you see that after we do our reviews, and if you see that the family have improved, the economic financial situation has improved, children are now employed, and what we normally do is we close those cases, and then as we close them, we bring in other families who are waiting.
Suppose after the review is done and the grace period ends, someone comes to you and says, I wasn't able to update my information. What happens to them?
Well, on that, we'll go case by case. I will go back case by case. If they do turn up and say, and so, it all depends on, each case. But there'll always be the leeway to be able to assist, if they...
Mr. Fatiaki, unfortunately, that's all we have time for on the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
And that's all we have for you on the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.